No, you in your second trimester, you can't do that. No, you in your third trimester, you can't do that.
It did sort of drag me down.
The medical community has been wrong.
We want to disrupt the industry in this way.
I am uniquely qualified to solve this problem.
Opportunities come by all the time.
I got this invite from His Majesty.
We have to knock on their door and beg them to be our pilot customers.
Of course, that's more money, right?
I am going to win this.
This is what disruptive innovation is all about.
I'm Shona Grundy, founder and host of These Three Things, a podcast aimed at building a thriving and more inclusive startup ecosystem through sharing real lessons from people doing the hard work. We focus on the three strategically critical aspects of the startup journey: raising capital, finding product market fit, and expanding offshore. If you find this useful, please subscribe and recommend the podcast to at least 3 other people. We appreciate you lending us your ears and joining us for this episode. Today's guest is Dara Cook. She is the founder and CEO of Expect, a trailblazing platform dedicated to prenatal and postnatal fitness. Expect is on a mission to transform maternal and child health by offering pre- and postnatal streaming fitness programs, all approved by obstetrics and gynecologists. What sets it apart is its commitment to safety and optimization for pregnancy, aiming to reduce complications during and after childbirth. Dara brings an impressive background to the table with 2 decades of experience at Viacom MTV Group. She has produced iconic shows like Total Request Live, MTV Spring Break, and even headlined the MTV Video Music Awards for 7 years. Join us today as we dive into fitness and entrepreneurship and what's the difference in capital raising and establishing product market fit within the United States market. Dara, welcome to These Three Things. It's lovely to have you on board.
Yes, hi, thank you so much.
You're coming to us from New York, I understand.
Yes, New York City.
Wonderful. Just to kick us off, you were at the MTV Group. You've gone into being an entrepreneur yourself. How did you actually get started on that journey?
Well, I had always been an entrepreneur in some sort of fashion. When I was a kid, when I was 11 years old, I started a business. I had gotten some money for my birthday and saved it. And instead of buying toys with it, I said I wanted to start a business. And I started buying just little sundries, essentially wholesale, and then selling them when I was in summer camp. And what I learned about that was about distribution, really. And I started selling a lot more once the school year started. So, you have as opposed to summer camp, only a subset of kids go to summer camp, but all kids must go to school or else it's illegal. The parents will go to prison at that age. And I remember I was making a lot of money. I had employees. I was officially registered with the state of New York at the time. And I remember one day running home with a bag of money, and I actually had to shut it down because our principal told me, he said, the school is basically enamored with this company and there's so much going on and you have people selling things in the library and after school, etc. And he's like, you got to shut it down. I was like 11, 12. So of course I shut it down. But I remember the day that I made more money than I did then. And I was in my late 20s. So this is after college. And I wrote about that. My essay for Wharton, I went to Wharton undergrad, was about that experience of me having this business when I was a kid and then always wanting to do that again. But, in terms of Expect is the only platform where every workout is approved by OBGYN. We started this, I came up with this idea because I was going to a gym. And it's actually an international chain that I believe they think they have some in the UK called Equinox. And Equinox is very expensive. Okay. It's at the time, I think I was paying $250, $300 US a month to go to this gym. And what I saw in group fitness classes, there were always pregnant women in these classes and they were being grossly underserved. And I realized that I was like, wow, if this is what's happening in the highest end of gyms. What's happening anywhere else, right? And so what was happening is a class would start, let's say it was like some kind of cardio class, right? And these classes are like 100% women or 99% women. The instructor would always start and say, hey, who's injured or pregnant? And there was always, some women who were like, oh, I'm in my second trimester. And when we were in the class, the instructor would say, no, you in your second trimester, you can't do that. No, you in your third trimester, you can't do that. And coming up with modifications on the fly. And I said, wow, this is terrible. At the same time, my sister had her first child at an older age, and her doctor said, you've got to exercise because you're at higher risk for gestational hypertension, high blood pressure, gestational diabetes. You got to exercise. So my sister exercised, and I was there when she gave birth. I got stuck in the room. The labor was so fast, the OBGYN was in there for 15 minutes. And the delivering OBGYN, she looked back at my sister as she was walking out, because it was just a straightforward delivery, no epidural, no complications whatsoever. And she looked back at my sister and she said, you exercise, right? And she said, yes. My OBGYN told me to. And she said, I've noticed that women who exercise have labors like this.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So that was the personal connection for me to see it up close. And to put in perspective, the United States has the worst maternal health in the developed world. So it is an acute problem here in the U.S. People are trying to figure out why so many women are dying in childbirth in the United States, why so many women who don't die experience these really, detrimental complications like gestational hypertension and diabetes. And it turns out that fitness is super efficient and effective at preventing all of these major complications. So there's this acute problem that we have in the U.S., and then we have this very elegant and simple solution. And I realized that my work, having spent 20 years at MTV and learning how to produce amazing content, and MTV taught me so much, that I could bring that into this space and bring entertainment grade production to pre and postnatal fitness content. So that's a very long answer, but I'm telling you everything since I was 11.
I mean, I always say ideas are a dime a dozen, right? Opportunities come by all the time, and it's your ability to recognize them as opportunities and then be passionate about them enough or care about them, because, this is a long-term thing. So what was that point where I have no doubt you've had a lot of opportunities put in front of you or a lot of ideas. What was that sort of trigger point that went, I want to be known for this. I want to solve this problem.
It's such a great question because I've had a bunch of ideas over the years, and at the same time I had this great job at MTV, and I'm sure a lot of people actually struggle with this. Someone like Jeff Bezos, I actually used his story when I left MTV, when I told my boss, this amazing person. It's hard. Jeff Bezos had a great job at D.E. Shaw, amazing hedge fund, very well respected. He was making great money then, right? But he had this idea to sell books on the internet, and he was trying to figure out whether he should do it or not. And so for me, the criteria was three things in terms of, why this idea, why did I leave MTV to build Expect, is because it hits the trifecta. It solves a real problem. Underneath that, no one else is doing it. It has a solution like ours. Number two, I am uniquely qualified to solve this problem. And then third, it's good. I've had ideas where maybe two of the three were there, or maybe all three were there, but they weren't. They weren't heavy on all three, right? It's just it's kind of a problem. I think I can do it. It's kind of good, right? But this is one of those things where we know this is a massive problem. Women are experiencing these preventable complications. So the CDC in America, the Centers for Disease Control, said that 80% of maternal deaths are preventable, over 80%. So that puts in perspective that you don't have to die in pregnancy. And one thing we never want to say, it's because women didn't exercise that they're dying in pregnancy. The problem has been on the medical community, and then on the solution side. For years, doctors were telling women, don't work out in pregnancy. It wasn't until some studies came out over the last 20 years, some of which were done by Dr. Iman Lee, who is now an advisor to Expect. I connected with her when I was up at Harvard Business School and was reading the research around prenatal fitness and the impact on two of the big conditions that I mentioned, hypertension in pregnancy, which is a leading cause of preterm birth and death, right? So women in pregnancy, you can just have high blood pressure. You're someone who, I have good friends who've experienced this. People have never had a problem with their blood pressure. You get pregnant, your blood pressure starts to spike. And the only way to solve it once you have it is they deliver the baby early. That's not a great outcome, right?
It certainly was. That was me.
Right?
That was me, by the way.
Really?
18 years ago, my grandmother died at the age of 29 with her fifth pregnancy, hypertension. And so I was under critical care, and mine was brought out as an emergency. And my husband says that they said, which do we save, the baby or the mother?
Oh.
I have no recollection of this, but
Right.
I know. Yeah, it's in my family. For
Oh my
certain.
goodness! And these are terrible trade-offs, right? That have been made. And in the U.S., the choice has been, let's save the baby, right? And so the mom. So our infant mortality rate has reduced over the years, but our maternal mortality rate has been increasing because of that trade-off. And we said we don't need that trade-off. We don't have to live in that way. So the medical community has been wrong. They've been telling women for years, and it wasn't up until these studies came out that the American College of OBGYNs said, oh, actually, no, you need to exercise in pregnancy. So that guidance changed. The World Health Organization says the same thing. So all the world's leading health organizations are now aligned on this, that and actually the guidance is now physical inactivity is a risk. So that's that.
I just want to pause here for a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Callaghan Innovation, Aotearoa New Zealand's innovation agency. This agency empowers innovators, helping you transform your world-bettering ideas into commercially successful ventures. What you may or may not know is that Callaghan have a fantastic suite of products called Upskill. These products will help you identify the innovation, R&D, and commercialization skills you need to amplify and elevate your ideas, and then train you to put them into practice. So go check it out by heading over to their website, callahaninnovation.govt.nz/upskill. I know that you went through an incubator program. Could you help outline that for us? You know, we have incubator programs in Australia, New Zealand, and other countries, but very curious to hear about the program that you went through. And then on the capital raising side, you know, I'd like to dig into that, like what support you got and how you got going.
So really, what's great, and I think, and it's good to hear that there are these incubators, accelerators in New Zealand. Here in the United States, there are two big ones that are really well known: Y Combinator and Techstars. And we were dead set on Techstars because there's an arm of Techstars called Techstars Healthcare. So Y Combinator doesn't have a healthcare focus. My co-founder and I obsessed with getting in. And why is because it gives you unparalleled access to your customer base. So Techstars Healthcare is partnered with UnitedHealthcare, the largest insurer in the U.S., Point32 Health, which is the second largest insurer in New England. Also Cedars-Sinai, which is a massive hospital system in Southern California, and UC Irvine Health, which is an academic medical center. So what's great is that they give you capital and they give you access to these partners, and then so many other mentors. So we had mentors from Kaiser Permanente, which is they call it like a pay-vider. They're a payer, they're an insurer, and they are a provider of hospitals throughout the United States. we really got, it was just an accelerated introduction into the world of healthcare, how it works, what they value. And, the meeting I came from just from this, with the Hospital Association of Southern California, that's directly out of Techstars. It all culminates with a demo day. So what happens is you're building your product, you're meeting people, and then there's this demo day where you do a pitch, right? And they help you. What's so great is, and I thought there was almost too much time spent on that pitch, but what's great is that you come away with sort of this bulletproof pitch, right? It's concise, really just tells your audience everything and shows your audience more so everything they need to know about the business. And then you can take that anywhere. So I was just coming out of this meeting where they were walking through, this is how you pitch. I'm like, no, we did that. It's like, I've got the pitch down. It's, I can do it in my sleep. I could do it upside down. So you come away with that. So I think these accelerators are great. And in terms of, raising funding, the accelerators are a great way. We've also gotten funding from some great institutions. So I went back when I first had this idea just to even see if it had any legs. I was like, let me just go back home to Wharton. And Wharton had this entrepreneurial competition. And I was like, I'm going to win it. I'm going to win money. And actually did. And so I said, okay, maybe there's something here. Harvard Business School had, every year they have a Black New Venture competition. It's open to anyone, not just people affiliated with Harvard. We won money through that. Tiger Global, which is a massive hedge fund, they have an impact ventures arm. We got money through them as well. We have great angel investors that we love so much, and a family office that made their money in resins. They're really a global leader in resins, micro resins. So in the life sciences world, a lot around monoclonal antibodies, which are really important, in our fight against COVID. So another great healthcare investor, Esther Dyson, she's super active in this space. So that's been our journey, and we're just starting on the institutional, on the full blown institutional race. So that's the traditional venture capitalists, et cetera. And all of us in Techstars are sort of in the same boat. We're all just starting that. And the market's a little funny right now in the U.S. and globally. So we're everyone's sort of we're actively talking to folks.
There's a couple of things that you said there, actually, I was really interested in. One was the fact that you actually have industry sort of teaming up with these incubators and potentially not saying, we're trying to be the innovators in our own bubble. They're now coming to people who want to be entrepreneurs and leaders in the tech side and saying, oh, we're going to lend you our industry vertical expertise so that you can succeed and you can help us,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Is that what you're seeing more and more of? Because I don't feel like I'm seeing that here.
It is, and what's great about it is I think these large companies like UnitedHealthcare, et cetera, they realize that, and it's smart for them. We get a lot out of it, but they get a lot out of it because they realize that there are these people that this is what disruptive innovation is all about. This idea of there's this great professor at Harvard Business School, Clayton Christensen, who coined the phrase disruptive innovation. And it's a theory that has played out so many times. It's the reason that Netflix was able to disrupt Blockbuster, or the reason why Amazon was able to disrupt Barnes & Noble, is that you have these incumbent companies, these big companies that have been around for a while, and they're missing out. They're not seeing, and they also, a lot of times they're seeing it, and then they're not acting on innovation that...
Well, they can't, right? Because they're right. So big, they're enterprise,
Exactly. So the incentives are not aligned for them. They have these hurdle rates that they have to achieve. The way they're capitalized, they almost structurally cannot explore these new opportunities, right? So I think these big companies, they realize this, right? So they say, all right, well, strategically, and so one of the things that Clayton Christensen has said is, if you're big company and you're trying to innovate, you do have to separate this innovation from your company, right? It can't be something that is just developed within your, you just don't go to your existing team and say, hey, on top of you working on our traditional line of business, I want you to create something new. That does not work, right? It has to be almost a separate division outside. And so this is really taking that to heart and saying, actually, it's better for us to identify the most promising startups out there, partner with them early, work with them so we can be their first customers, and maybe we can acquire them, et cetera. It all makes sense. So that's what this is.
I do see that. That's really quite profound and quite a difference that I can see then happening in the United States. Whereas in New Zealand and Australia, we go, we want to disrupt the industry in this way. We've come up with the idea, and then we have to knock on their door and beg them to be our pilot customers. And will you work with us? And you're trying to find the personalities within those companies who are willing, and they're definitely there, right? They want to be, but you've got to find them. It's like, who's your innovative person who wants to work alongside of us? So I think this is a wonderful example of potentially why there's so much innovation in the United States that's so successful.
Yes. These things are called accelerators for real reason. I mean, they supercharge your growth. I mean, I remember I was trying to meet people at UnitedHealthcare, for example, and I get very obsessive over things and just circling around people, and then all of a sudden now we have regular meetings with them thanks to Techstars, right? They put you in touch with the people that you need to really catapult your business.
As a woman and a woman of color in the entrepreneurial space, is there anything that you want to share with us that that has either been of benefit or a challenge to you that as you're capital raising? Have you faced any adversity there?
There's this great book called Edge by Laura Huang, who used to be a professor at Wharton. Now she's at Harvard Business School. And the book is about how you can use what people may consider to be a detriment to your advantage, right? And she actually specifically does talk about, there's parts in the book when she talks about maybe having an accent or being a woman or being not white. How can you use that to your advantage? I have always seen it, even though, okay, so what I don't like, and this is something that I'm going to continue to talk about and talk about more as I continue this journey, is that there are all of these stats in the United States about, only 2% of venture capital goes to women, and like only X% goes to Black people. God forbid you're a Black woman. I mean, it's not even reportable. And these stats are reported on. I think, the goal is to raise awareness, right, and to sort of right things. But I also think it shuts a lot of people out. It becomes a mind game, and it scares people. Steve Jobs, they call it a reality. He had a reality distortion.
Distortion, right? Reality. Yeah.
Yeah. I operate from that standpoint. I can't believe it's harder for me. I can't. And actually, I've only taken it as an advantage because when I was a kid, and it's the same thing, Condoleezza Rice, who was Secretary of State in the United States, who was a Black woman, her parents told her, they said, because you're a Black girl, you've got to be twice as good. So my parents always told me that. They're like, you've got to work harder, you've got to be smarter. So I've always taken that as an advantage. So I have taken the fact that I'm a Black woman, I will work you under the table. You know what I mean? That's my thing. It's like when I'm focused, I am, so it's because I have this, I feel like I have to. It's like, no, I have to work harder than you. And so it becomes an advantage.
Like an unstoppable force, right?
Yes, it becomes
like
an
very
advantage.
Internal.
Right. And so, I mean, I heard it's going to be harder. But at the same time, everyone has a hard time. There's white men who I know have had, like blonde hair, blue eyed white men I know who told me they had a tough time raising money. Talk to, go well into like the 3 digits of no. You just have to be resilient.
I think I felt the same way when I was raising money. I was just like, I've got this, like I'm going to be the best in the room and I am going to win this. And then when I started seeing the stats come out years later about how underrepresented women were, it did sort of drag me down. I did kind of listen to that and go, oh, well, I don't have much of a shot then. Am I going to try again? And I agree with you. It's if you don't have that mindset, if you're just like, I'm the best in the room and I will, push you under the table with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. I'd like to move a little bit onto the product market fit. I kind of get the feeling that I understand why you have product market fit because you have just explained how closely industry works with you. But do you want to share with me some of your tactics that you've used to ensure that what you have built is right for your primary audiences and why you're winning in your sector?
You talk to people and you listen to what they want. So they will tell you what's important to them. We heard things from Techstars partner Point 32 Health, which was great. That's the former Harvard plan and the Tufts plan, and they combined and they got bigger. But they told us things about diversity, how important that was for them, even beyond. We actually heard that from another, like a corporate, a big company, and we were surprised. Diversity has always been important to us in terms of, featuring a variety of women in our app. And then even we are the only app that we have men in there too, because chances are if a woman is pregnant, it's a decent chance she got pregnant by a man. So why not include them in the app, right? A man who's like in her life that she knows. So when you have these conversations as you're building, and then you keep having them, right? And so even just things that we learned, it's like some of the things on the back end, it's like, oh, we need to be able to trace things like this on the back end. And you're just constantly, you have to keep exposing what you're doing to people, listening to what they want.
I'm curious about the problem as well, right? So you've said from an educated point of view, I understand that exercising for women who are pregnant is a problem. But that's from an educated science point of view, working with the industry. So my question then becomes, do your actual pregnant women know that they've got a problem? And how have you overcome that?
So one of the things that we're adding right now into the app is educational videos that are coming from our doctors, other trainers, etc. So we have a board of 13 OBGYNs, and like we mentioned, I'm in Lee from Harvard Medical School, and she actually just did a video for us this week. And we have this TikTok style feed in the app because we want to, from a behavioral science standpoint, we're not going to try to create new habits. We want to build upon existing habits. We know that we spend a lot of time scrolling on Instagram and TikTok. So we sort of co-opted that style for this app. So we have workout previews in this TikTok feed. And we also have educational content now that's coming in from doctors that are saying, this is why I recommend that my patients work out in pregnancy. These are the benefits, et cetera, for women who may not be getting that information. To your point about, some people are educated on it. Some women aren't. And, there are women out there who we have an OBGYN shortage in the United States. So that means that there are so many women who are pregnant and they don't have an OBGYN. And some of them, they have OBGYNs, but their OBGYNs are rushed, because they're seeing so many patients. And so, we're trying to bridge that also with these top OBGYNs who are giving information to them as if they were, almost in there. And it's not medical advice. It's just saying, in general, these are the benefits of this is why you should work out. So that's how we're bridging that. And then next week, we're launching a huge, that content will be on social media. So that content will go broad beyond the app itself to bring in women who haven't even downloaded Expect yet.
To talk about a little bit about expansion, from a New Zealand and Australian point of view, we always consider global first. Well, that's what we're told. However, from your point of view, how do you address the market and how do you address your USA market and then looking globally, is that a big factor for you when you're building your company?
It is. And from the very beginning, we looked at international, and we have a list of companies. We have this list. We actually started talking to the UK. I don't know if I can even say that now. We started talking to the UK because the UK has some similar issues as the United States, even though the healthcare system is different. They have NHS, but they also have in Scotland and Wales. There's a lot of rural places that don't have, where women, like in the United States, where there aren't enough OBGYNs in hospitals, and the NHS is looking for digital health solutions to bridge those gaps, right? So we've started having these conversations with the UK. They have this wonderful office that facilitates trade between US startups and the UK. It's really amazing. And we met them through Techstars. So that's another example of the beauty of an accelerator program. I didn't even know this existed. There was this function within the UK government. It was funny when I got this invite from His Majesty to come to the consul's house in Los Angeles. And I was just like, at first I thought it was like spam. And then I was like, no, this is really real. I was like, it's the king. And the king was not there, but this is all part of it's part of the UK. So high on our list for expansion, India and Nigeria. Why? India is now the most populous country in the world. They also, Nigeria has a birth rate of five children per woman now, as opposed to the US, which is at like a little bit over 2. And both countries have very strong production capabilities in country, right? So there's Bollywood and there's Nollywood. What that means is that we can produce content in the country that will culturally resonate, as opposed to us just creating content here in the US and exporting it. So they're high on our list. Of course, Australia is high on our list, and a lot of it. We pick English-speaking countries because we're also trying to be, there's also like ease of entry, right? I mean, we just don't want to say, hey, we're going to start with China. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's a massive market. Is it challenging? Yes. So we don't want to just come out and go international and go, okay, we're going to start with that's the big, everyone wants China, right? But it's harder to get into, language just being one of the reasons, right? At least in the UK, it's like, okay, look, I can read all the documents, we can talk, we can, it's that simple, right? And then we can keep going with the other countries. But yes, international expansion is definitely a huge part of where we're going.
And in those plans, is there, how do you address that? Is it, bootstrapped? Are you going to capital raise again? What's your plans to actually getting it out there?
Some of these countries help you get in. You're solving a problem that they have, right? And so, sometimes the capital can come from the country. Yeah, that would be a further capital raise, because there's a lot of other, we just started in talking with the UK. They have different privacy laws, right, that are stricter when you start moving into Western Europe. Their privacy laws are so different. So our terms and conditions and our privacy policy, all that has to change, and how we track and don't track things. You're investing more into Android as you go international. So there are real capital requirements. Obviously, once you start talking about production and producing in other countries, you're not just taking, and of course, what's great about being someone who learned how to produce content in the US. And when I was at MTV, we also ran MTV International, as well as so much of content that is produced in the UK, in the US exports very well, right? So that's the beauty of this. So you can get a lot of mileage, but we also want to be respectful, and we want to resonate everywhere we go. And create, but of course that's more money, right? So and it's probably cheaper. I mean, the U.S. is the most expensive country to do anything in. All the manufacturing has moved out, but so much of content production still happens in the U.S. But it would be refreshing to go to Nigeria and produce some content. I know it's going to be cheaper than Brooklyn, and you'll get great quality.
Dara, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed learning just a little bit about what it's like to be an entrepreneur in the United States, starting out and building your business. It sounds like an exciting journey. Thank you for joining us.
Great. Thank you so much.
I'm Hussein Al-Bedri, producer of These Three Things. This part of the podcast is called The Three Learned Things. Shona and I wanted to briefly reflect on the 3 key insights we got from today's episode, which is brought to you in association with Callahan Innovations' Upskill products. These products are designed to help startups uncover and acquire the skills they need to succeed. What an amazing conversation with Dara. She's a close friend of mine and someone I admire a lot. And I've watched her startup journey from a distance, but she's an amazing, amazing founder. What was the first thing that I got out of that conversation was the concept of accelerators. We haven't really touched on those so far in the podcast. And she went through the Techstars accelerator, and it's they've got a specific health accelerator. She talked about how that has done a few things for her. It's helped her, giving her the ability to nail her pitch. So she's constantly refining her pitch. And we talked a lot about pitching through this podcast series. And, that was a big leg up that it gave her. She talked about support from a funding perspective, connection with customers. I know that her biggest customer at the moment was one of the organizations that is involved in sponsoring that accelerator. There's a lot of funding potential that is unlocked, but also the right connections and the right network that you need. So yeah, I guess the insight is accelerators are still a great way for startups to kickstart their journey.
Absolutely. And this led then on to my key takeaway point. And maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I really loved how she was very clear how industry was moving really close to the problem now with innovators. They weren't waiting until innovators delivered them a solution, right? They were getting right in there on the accelerator level and being very clear about this is our problem. They weren't trying to give a solution because that's not their job, right? And they don't understand technology, but they were helping, not only saying the problem, but giving the context behind it and then getting clarity on that problem, because there's always nuances to a problem. And it's something that I would really love to see more in our New Zealand and Australian ecosystem, because I do know that I've been talking to people within the construction industry, and when I've said, I really want to talk to you about this piece of technology that I think will be amazing for you, I've had them turn around to me and say, oh my gosh, this is great because we need more technology to help us in our jobs. And I'm looking at them thinking, what are you talking about? There are so many innovations going on for your industry. But in reality, what's happening is these great innovators are off to the side, looking at their industry and imagining the problems within construction, for example, because they're seeing it out on the streets. But when they go and take that innovation to the construction industry are going, hey, cool tool or innovation, not sure how that helps me in my job, but you're really cool and what a smart person you are. And what's happening is there's this very slight disconnect of the problems that the industry within construction have and the innovators making assumptions about what they are. And it's just a whole bunch of wasted effort and time. And I'd really like to see industry or us finding a way to bring in industry much closer to the problem point when the seed of the idea is being formed. And I think that will really help us speed along helping each other and helping us solve big, massive problems in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I feel personally, I work in this field of corporate innovation and work with a lot of big organizations around the place on their corporate innovation journey. And this whole concept of venturing and opening up your challenges to other innovators to contribute is a huge opportunity. And it feels like we've gone through a cycle of doing that, and then we just kind of stopped. So a lot of our accelerators feel more oriented towards impact, which is great. Impact is really important, but also we need those big corporations to be leaning in and continuing that effort. It is a sustaining effort that they need for them to be able to innovate and to be creating more value within the country as well, so that we can export that innovation overseas.
No, excellent point. And so what would be your final takeaway from our conversation with Dara?
So Dara inspires me for many reasons. One of those reasons is her resilience and her hardworking ethic. She is a African-American founder. She is a woman, female founder. And those two things, they're heavily underrepresented in technology and in the startup community in general. And so when we quizzed her on that, her answer was very inspiring. She said, think about it in a different way. How do you use your disadvantage of being underrepresented as the advantage that's going to make you more resilient and more hardworking? And I do think there is a huge mindset that is required in order for people to develop that resilience, people who are underrepresented in the community to develop that resilience, but also people who are on the investment side and on the corporate side, on the customer side, to be aware of that so that they can provide the right level of empowerment.
That's right. Because if you imagine that someone who is underrepresented and doesn't feel like they belong is striving and thriving, you've got to look at that person and go, wow, you're an incredible human being. Like, look at what you have done despite. And they're thinking, well, no, those aren't my barriers and I will not accept that. And so you just kind of look at that person and go, I think you're going to do big things.
Yeah, very inspiring.
Can you do me a favor? If you like this episode, can you hit the subscribe button? It really makes a huge difference to us, and it means that we can continue to evolve, grow, and bring more insights from a larger variety of guests. Thank you for listening to These Three Things. Our podcast is fueled by our passion and admiration for startups and the courageous people who create them. A huge thanks to our wonderful listeners and guests, my producer Hussein Al-Badri, our sound and visual crew, Elisa Grishkova and Carl Butler, and our sponsor, Callahan Innovation, who are just as committed and passionate about the ecosystem as we are. Tune in next week for another episode of These Three Things.